expired. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, ranking member of our Oversight Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would like to welcome you back again, Chairman Frank. It was an honor to serve in Congress under your leadership when I was a neophyte. And I must tell you that it's also an honor to serve under the leadership of the Honorable Maxine Waters. You left the committee in capable, competent, and qualified hands, and I believe she is following in the tradition and doing an outstanding job. With reference to several things, we talk about community banks quite a bit, Mr. Frank. And when we talk about community banks in terms of the aid and assistance and the changes necessary to make them effective, we use small banks. But when we start to generate legislation, the size becomes very large. In fact, we've had testimony from at least one or two bankers who've indicated that $30, $40, $50 million is a community bank. Mr. Wilson, we all support what you want and trying to help you. But when we try to get a definition of a community bank, it becomes very difficult when we reach the size of $30, $40, $50 billion, not million dollars, billion dollars. So therein lies a small problem. But for today, let's deal with some other issues. Mr. Frank, I'd like for you, if you would, to come back to the question of a single director as opposed to a commission, because I don't think you had an opportunity to finish your answer, and this is something that we have litigated here at the committee level quite a bit.
Thank you. Can I just say, with regard to the community bank problem, obviously it's a problem, if I could just interject, to have them diminish. I don't think that adds to systemic risk. There's a loss of social function, of economic activity. A lot of the losses of community banks have been going to the regional banks and the mid-sized banks. So I don't think that's a systemic risk problem. It's a social problem that I would like to work on, and a local service problem. As far as the single director, yeah, the member from Pennsylvania thought he made a point. I originally wanted to be a single director. The intra-party votes in the House, the Energy and Commerce people wanted to be a commission. We compromised. We went to the Senate, and the Senate also wanted a single director, and I didn't put up that tough a fight for the House position. I mean, look, that's in a conference. Some people have alluded to other things. And there's been this notion that there's something unique about the Consumer Bureau because it doesn't go through Congress. Neither does the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Neither does the Federal Reserve System. Neither does the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. In fact, none of the bank regulators are subject to the appropriations process. And I believe that what you got is an anti-consumer activism issue here, not a process issue, because when I was here and an amendment was offered to subject the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to the appropriations process, I offered an amendment to do the same for the Federal Reserve. I would think people worried about accountability would think it was a greater problem that the Federal Reserve wasn't subject to the appropriations process, and after all, the Consumer Bureau gets its money from the Federal Reserve. Now, I will tell you that that caused great palpitations at the Federal Reserve, but in fact, they were able to count on the fact that the Republicans didn't want to have a Consumer Bureau running amok without any congressional appropriations control, but with the much more powerful Federal Reserve, that was fine. So the committee voted down my amendment when the Republicans were in the majority. So I think that underlines that we're talking about these limitations.
Accountability, would you address it for just a moment, please? Because there seems to be the notion afoot that the CFPB is totally unaccountable, that it can make rules that cannot be overturned, that they simply have this inordinate amount of power with no restrictions. Would you kindly address
that? Well, in the first place, it's one of the most popular things Congress has done. And I know Chairman had said that the financial reform bill is as damaging as the health care bill. Well, my recollection is that this Republican Congress votes on a fairly regular basis to repeal the health care bill. Well, where's your bill to repeal the financial reform bill? If you have the courage of your convictions, let's bring it on. I think the problem is that the public is, in fact, much more supportive of it, and particularly of the Consumer Bureau. And as to accountability, I don't know how many hearings I was summoned to when we were in the minority, oversight hearings by this committee in which the topic was the lack of oversight of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I never spent so much time in oversight hearings complaining about an absence of oversight. And I think the public, and here's the final point, they don't like it, and they complain that it's not subject to appropriations, but nobody has pointed to any abusive practice that I can see. No one has pointed to any unfair intrusion into the business models.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.